check in and let me know the status of the work group you're associated with. Uh, Gloria, and then um, Tina, even though I know Tina will no longer be the chair, maybe Rita will check in on that. So Gloria and then Rita.
Hi, I'm reporting on the CCS. It's a new subgroup, working group, whatever we're going to call it, and it's communications, culture and the arts, and sensitization. That last was suggested by Shilpa. What we are going to do is facilitate projects in those areas. And yes, we're very much functioning.
Excellent, thank you. I know, Tina, that you have stepped away from chairing Border and Migration Justice, and Rita has stepped up to take that over. Rita, is there anything you want us to know tonight?
I did read Tina's email about dealing with the children and the fact that there's how do you say it, exposed to traumatic situation, being held as they are and separated from their families. But I will be looking even more so into that, because the children that came up missing, that were taken from their families or separated or crossed without adult supervision, there was a great amount of children missing that they lost track of. And it was big news for a minute, and then I didn't hear anything else. And I'm still exploring that. I want to know what happened to these children and how can we find them and how can they be returned to their families.
Right.
That is totally inappropriate. It just, what it does is they've been putting these kids in homes. I don't want to call them foster homes, but that's the closest I can analogy I could come up with. But it puts them at risk of being child trafficked, and that's a very big concern for me. So I'll be exploring that. If everybody's, I don't know if we have to vote on that or whatever, but that is something that I want to look at a little closer.
Thank you, Rita. And I look forward to you convening a meeting of the Border and Migration Justice work group. Yes, Teresa. Your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But we should hear from Tina because all the months that she worked on that major accomplishment of getting the Spanish brochure together, working with Adrian. And I think it would be fair to let Tina say where that is, because that was a lot of important work. And maybe she has more to say about the Mexico cross border work that she was also engaged in. But I think Tina, she's really been carrying the heavy load for quite a few months. So it would be good to hear from Tina, at least on those two things. And then I'll be glad to talk about the working groups I'm with. Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Tina.
Okay, yep, I'm off mute. Can you hear me okay? I'm using earbuds.
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, great. Yeah, the Spanish language brochure, if you don't know, is a translation that was worked on by Adrian Bernal, and along with input from some other Spanish language speakers within WILF. And it is ready to be used. We have, there's still a little bit of discussion having to do with kind of, the new website, where it will live. It doesn't have a place on the website right now, but it does have it is ready and can be shared with anyone who wants it. And they can reach out to me right now, and I think every once in a while they can maybe just put it on the branches list. I'll make sure that Rita gets it. In terms of the other thing we're working on with Melissa is to organize a meeting with Mexico Limpal and being able to just kind of really just start a discussion between the two sections with a goal of communicating about what's happening at the border. And I'd also like to say thank you to Rita, and I will make sure that you get like emails and things like that, and recent information. So I will send that to you via email.
Thank you, Tina. You're very gracious. Thank you.
Good news all around. Welcome, Sheila Harper. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing okay. Anything you want to say to us, Sheila? Okay, cool.
Well, George, it would be nice to, since everybody may not know Sheila, to hear what her branch is, and if she could just quickly introduce herself, that would be great.
Yes, it would be great. Sheila, are you able to unmute and let us know your branch?
I am sorry, I didn't realize that I was muted. So, hello everyone. I just wanted to say hi, and I'm with the Philly Wolf branch, and my name is Sheila Harper, and I've been with Wolf now. I guess I'm going into my second year. I'm a little behind in terms of time, like I think we all are. And I just want to be involved. And my major focus has been on the, oh goodness gracious, I'm sorry. My focus has been on the whole anti-racism piece, along with very interested in what's going on with the Palestinians and the whole Middle East situation. So that's it.
Glad you're here, Sheila.
I'm glad to be here.
I want to hear a little bit about the committees that Teresa, you and CC are co-chairing one of them, but I also want to raise for people the thing that we want to come to a decision about tonight, if at all possible, knowing that we need a new chair or co-chairs. Teresa and CC have stepped up to volunteer to do that. So if anyone else is interested in chairing, let me know. Otherwise, I'd like to hear from you, Teresa, and then you, CC, about the work you've done up to now and any thoughts on being the co-chair for AHR. And if you can each take not more than 2 or 3 minutes, that would be great. So Teresa and then CC.
Well, combining that, since I have to give credit to Joan Goddard, we had a situation where the longtime AHR chair was left the position, and then we had 3 co-chairs, amazing women of African descent, and then they couldn't do it. And Joan, George, and I, and Darian met a few times, and Joan stepped in the role of facilitating the meetings and helping to set up what we're now calling work groups. So you heard from Border and Migration Justice, well, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. That is the subcommittee working group that I've been convening by getting special speakers to come in to speak on the death penalty and ending mass incarceration. And I must say that we've had quite a few branches involved in those meetings, from Vermont to Cape Cod to Boston to the Triangle to the Triad. to the Southern Piedmont, to Metro Atlanta, to San Jose, to San Francisco. So the strategy that I've used is the engagement of branches in AHR. So when we do our working group meetings, we want to make sure that we have good branch representation. And that's also been true of the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee Working Group, that we managed to have great speakers on reparations, and we've made sure that branch engagement. So somebody needs to blow their nose on mute. But we're very glad that so many people from Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Vermont, and other branches that have taken it found it important to try to see what reparations work is being done in their cities, and particularly noting Boston and its reparations work. And I believe Ellen Mass has been the person who's attended those meetings from Boston. So I'm glad to see Eileen here, since Boston actually has a reparations ordinance, and we know that California is going strong with that. So I just would say, in terms of the chairing and co-chairing, because CC and I are involved in two of the most active sections of the work, which, you know, what we have, the new working group with Gloria, and we have never been able to really connect with the UN for Women group. So we actually still have 4 working groups: border and migration, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, UN Decade Reparations. And I envision us adding a 5th group of housing justice, because advancing human rights is really all about our rights under the UN Declaration for Human Rights. And that's why it was so important to hear from the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee, because the most catastrophic human rights situation that has happened in a long time is the bombing of the children in Gaza. And so I'm happy to serve as chair and to make sure that the meetings happen regularly and that we increase the participation of branches. That's kind of my vision going forward, really increasing the participation of branches. Thank you, George.
Thanks, Teresa. Let's say hello to Adrian Bernal, who we brought your name up before you came on. If you want to say your branch and say good evening, go ahead.
Okay, yes, good evening. This is Adrian Bernal, or in English, Adrian Bernal. I'm in Atlanta. I'm at the Atlanta branch, and I'm sorry I was late. I was at another meeting beforehand, but I'm here now and glad to join y'all.
Glad you're here. CC, I muted you earlier, but if you want to unmute and have a couple of minutes to talk about your past work with advancing human rights and any thoughts about you and Teresa co-chairing Advancing Human Rights.
Yes, thank you so much, George, and good evening to everyone. I've been on 3 back-to-back Zoom calls this evening. I am CC Anderson. I'm in Metro Atlanta branch. I've known Teresa for several years, many moons now. We have worked really close together on several projects and several different organizations. I've been involved with the UN and spoke there several different times. And my main thing is just being a co-chair with mass incarcerations with men and women, specifically women who are in prison, in jails. My background is in healthcare and the disparities of mass, um, the institutions where we institutionalize people, and there is seem to be no hope. And I have spoken to Teresa several times concerning this. I guess I'm going to just be her assistant because she has more experience than I do. But my heart goes out to these women who are locked up and have families and children. My main thing, as I was stating, is getting involved, being more as a women and children's advocate. I have worked closely with all the sheriffs in Metro Atlanta and still work with them. I'm going to meet with them on next week concerning some of the issues that we're dealing with here in Georgia. That's basically it, George. If anybody have any question, I'm willing to answer it.
Well, George, let me just say this about how far back CC and I go. We really met through women in the NAACP. I'm a lifetime member, and I think CC may be as well.
Yes.
CC has been a major leader of women's empowerment in the NAACP, which has a tendency to lean towards male domination. So that's what she is kind of famous for throughout the state of Georgia. But CC is also president of the board of Georgia WAN, Women in Action for New Directions. And they take on Georgia Power Southern Company and building these nuclear power plants, particularly Plant Vogtle. So those are two things I think worth mentioning about CC's engagement in movement building. And I'm just always so impressed with the things that she gets accomplished while also being a caregiver. So I'm just saying, CC and I do go way back, and it would be a joy to work with her as co-chair. And I don't know what she's talking about, assistant, because I've learned so much from CC over the years, even though she's much younger than me, but she is been moving and shaking for a long time, and it's just great that she's stepping into AHR. Thank you, George.
Thank
George,
you.
let me just say one other thing very
Yes,
quickly.
ma'am.
Teresa has been one of my mentors. She didn't know it. I'm telling her tonight after all these years. And she brought me into Will. So I'm so glad to be a part of it because I wanted to be involved. And sometimes she gets on to me about spreading myself so thin. And I have good intentions, Teresa. She knows that very well.
Yep.
Thank you so much, George, for your assistance as well.
No worries at all. Are there any questions for CC or Teresa with regard to them co-chairing Advancing Human Rights? And I want to ask one more time, is there anyone else who's interested in chairing or co-chairing? Okay, I'm taking that you're clapping, Tina. If you have a question, let me know. Okay, that's lovely.
Yes,
The heart is
yes,
beautiful.
I'm clapping. Thank you.
Sure. So, no one has questions. Is there anyone who would stand aside in the decision to have Tina, oh no, I'm sorry, having CC and Teresa as co-chairs of AHR? I'm taking us through consensus. Okay, no stand asides. Anyone who would block having Tina, Teresa, and CC as co-chairs of AHR? No? All right, so there's no uneasiness on anyone's part of us having new co-chairs of AHR, CC Anderson and Teresa Elamine. Is this a consensus decision? Joan?
Yeah, the only question I have is whether we've given enough notice to people. Obviously, CC and Teresa sound like a great, great co-chairs. And the only question I would have is whether there's been enough, communication and so on, because there are some people who have been fairly active who aren't here tonight. But
Yes.
do we
You're right
feel
in
that
that
they've been
regard.
given plenty of time and plenty of notice?
The
so that they
notice
won't get
about
concerned?
this meeting, including co-chairs, went out to the branches list over a week ago, went out to
Right.
everyone who's ever registered for an AHR meeting over a week ago. I consider that plenty of time. Teresa, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad that Joan raised that. But I think that this is a committee that's had lots of ups and downs, some rather slow movements and some rather abrupt and quick movements. And I think that there's no particular great formula beyond people who know the work and who do the work. And in that sense, I feel very confident in saying that I know the work and I do the work. And I've been doing the work since 1966 around human rights. And so I'm willing to serve for as long as I can, but for sure for the next year, if that works out. And Joan, the assistance that you provided in dealing with advancing human rights listserv, etc. And I am so sorry that Donna is having such a tough time because she stepped in a very short period of time. And so I think there's no real formula about how long people need to get. And George has done an excellent job of getting the word out. And so it's great that we have, 12 people here tonight. And I was just counting the different branches, Joan. So for me, the key is how many branches. So we have Fannie Lou Hamer, we have Southern Piedmont, and we just have Burlington to join us with Robin. We have Metro Atlanta. We have Jane Addams. We have Boston. We have Tucson. We have San Jose. And we have Philadelphia. So we have a critical mass of branches, Joan. So I feel confident we're in a position to close the question on who is going to do the interim co-chairs because George and I talked today in her role as program committee chair. So George, I think it would be good to talk about the proposal for when we would meet again and make sure, since we've been able to do so much in about half an hour, it would be great to talk about the proposed upcoming meetings that kind of connect with program.
Right.
So George,
I
want to
will.
run down?
We have a couple of other items to cover before then, but we'll do that before we close the meeting. Robin Lloyd, do you want to say hello and tell us what branch you're from?
Yeah, Robin Lloyd, Burlington, Vermont.
Good to have you here. One thing that is a pressing need, and possibly our new co-chairs can deal with this on their own, which would be great because then we don't have to do it, is by Friday, next Friday, November 4th, we need to share with a staff person from WILF how this issue committee wants to use its $500 a year allocation. They want a budget for how the $500 will be allocated. And that's next week. So that's a decision that something that has to happen in the next week. And Teresa, can UNCC take it on, or what process do y'all recommend? I can tell Joan's got something to say, just looking at your face, Joan. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, George, I think, $500 is not a lot of money. And when we talked before we talked about the working groups getting an allocation. And so I think it would be fair for each working group, since there are actually 4 working groups, to be given an allocation of 125 to do the projects, because I know for ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, I think we need to pull together a brochure, and I think also we could put together something for reparations and the UN decade, because what may be happening is the UN decade may be extended for another 10 years. So when I thought we would be ending the decade in 2024, that may not be the case. So I think for now, the simplest way to deal with it is to allocate 125 for the 4 working groups. Certainly, the brochure and migration and border um, justice might be able to figure out something for the members of that working group to be able to assist in printing out stuff. So that's what I would propose for now. So if we could just let that percolate, since we have a little more than a week to finally decide. George, maybe you can mention it at the steering committee meeting this weekend when you give the report about the outcome of this meeting. But that would be my proposal. Thank you.
Thanks. Is that proposal okay with other people for now? It will percolate for a bit. No strong objections. That sounds good. Yes, Joan.
George, the only thing I haven't been clear about in some of the communication was whether everybody knows that what we're being asked for is what we want for next year.
Yes,
I'm
2024.
not even sure whether we have an allocation this year. We may, but
No, this year is over essentially.
yes, exactly.
Yes, this is for next year.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Okay. I have
Well,
an
George,
announcement. Yes.
George, I'm glad Joan interjected that, because that makes it even better, because the working groups have time to figure out how they would use their little pittance, because I know that Wolf is on a calendar fiscal year, so January to December, but I think the monies usually get distributed somewhere in the first quarter or the beginning of the second quarter. So it's good that Joan mentioned it's not like we're getting ready to get $500 right now, but in terms of how we want to use it in the upcoming budget, I think that would be a fair way to do it. Sorry. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's all good. So the announcements that I have, and if anyone else has an announcement, raise your hand or put that in the chat. The Congress next year, the Wilf US Congress for 2024 will be, the dates are in May, and it will be mostly in person with a little bit of virtual. There was a meeting about it on the 18th. The board voted by email and decided that it will be predominantly in person with some virtual. Just wanted to announce that. The expectation of cost, which the board hopes to subsidize, is that no one will spend more than $600 to $700 each, and that the lower end may be if you're sharing a room. Okay, so that's the announcement there. Now let's think about upcoming meetings for AHR. The program committee, which I chair, I'm chairing this meeting tonight, but because y'all didn't have a co-chair yet, or chairs, but as the program committee chair, part of my responsibility is making sure all of the issue committees are running well. And because that's the work the program of WILF happens in the issue committees. And we meet, program committee meets on the last Monday of the month. So next month, the program committee will meet on the 27th. We meet at 8:30. When Teresa and I talked today about meetings, an AHR meeting and program committee meeting, I believe Teresa said if AHR meets on the 3rd or the next to the last meeting in the month, at this same time, I believe 8 o'clock, 8 to 9. So that would mean the next AHR meeting would be on November 20th. Looking forward a couple of months, Teresa and I agreed that there would not be meetings in December because the last Monday is Christmas Day and AHR won't meet in December. But in January, the Advancing Human Rights will meet on the 22nd of the month and program will meet on the 29th. So mark your calendars. And on February, program meets on the 26th and AHR on the 19th. So now you've got meetings for the next 3 meetings. So I'm going to say those again so you can put them on your calendars or jot them down. For November, Advancing Human Rights meets on the 20th. No Advancing Human Rights meeting in December. In January, Advancing Human Rights meets on the 22nd. And in February, Advancing Human Rights meets on the 19th. Any questions? Anybody?
Yes,
Gloria?
I prefer seeing it in writing.
Yeah,
You will certainly see it in writing.
put it in the chat.
All right.
I have a question about the, what was the explanation for November? If it's on the last Monday of November, wouldn't that be the 27th?
That's the program committee meeting. The Advancing
Yeah.
Human Rights is a week earlier, so the 22nd in November.
No,
I'm putting the dates in
No,
the chat.
George, it's, George, you got your, math a little off. The meeting, for, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
It would be November 20th, for the AHR meeting, Eileen. So November 20th, is the week of Thanksgiving, so it will be the Monday, before Thanksgiving, for the AHR meeting. And so what needs to happen between now and then is that the working groups need to get their plans together, because I envision us possibly being able to talk about, like we did tonight, what's going on. But I do know the expectation is that we would report our work in the e-news. So there's an e-news deadline coming up soon for the end of October. And so when George and I talked earlier, we talked about George reporting in the e-news as part of her program committee chair report, that the new co-chairs have been assigned for AHR, and to mention the umbrella meeting dates. That would be the blurb that I would see in the upcoming e-news. So that way, Joan, everybody will know what's going on and they'll know when our meetings are. The one thing we didn't say, George, I love the 8 o'clock start time. So if everybody's okay with an 8 p.m. start time on November 20th, January 22nd, and February 19th, I would appreciate knowing that now. George, it is
Looks
a
like
question.
everybody's thumbs up or peace signs or whatever. Thanks, Robin. That looks good. It's all good from here. Yes,
Well,
awesome.
George,
No, it's
George,
okay.
Okay, good.
George, it's like 10 minutes till 9, and you know how I love the 1 hour meeting.
Yeah, we're
And
done. We're at the end of the meeting. Except next
Okay,
meeting.
can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Sheila.
Where is the Congress scheduled? It's in May of 2024, but where will it be scheduled? What
Minneapolis.
city? Oh, Minneapolis. Okay, great.
Minneapolis.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry,
All right.
George, actually St. Paul. Actually St. Paul. So the Twin Cities.
Oh, it's St. Paul. I'm so
St.
sorry.
Paul,
I got
yeah.
it wrong.
That's okay.
Well, that's
Well,
almost the same, but
They're
and it
spitting
almost the
distance
same,
from
starts-
each other. All
it's
right,
May
good people.
30th and into June.
Yes,
Okay.
for June 1st and
End
2nd.
of
yeah.
May.
Mhm.
yeah, June 2nd it ends. It's from the 30th of May to June 2nd. I'm on the committee.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Okay, so we're done. And I'll send out the recording and the chat. Anyone who stays on till I close everything, here's a 90 seconds of Jan Quarterman at her protest in Des Moines.
I am a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We are the longest continually active peace group in the United States. We started in 1915 during World War I. We gathered in The Hague, just miles from where the fighting was happening, and from there we spoke to every leader in Europe and asked to stop the war. Because we learned something back then, it's still true now. War is not the answer. War is not the answer. War is not the answer. So we have 3 demands that we're making of our congresspeople, of our Secretary of State, of our President, and I want to read them to you and I ask you to share them. We demand an immediate ceasefire and talks involving all parties, including democratically elected Hamas. They must be at the table. Let's go. Yes. We want to discuss the root causes and how to move forward with justice, safety, and dignity for all. That was number 1. Number 2, we want to freeze military sales to Israel, pending investigation. We need to investigate their human rights violations. We want to demand that Israel sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Yes, unregulated nuclear weapons of any nation are a threat to the region and to the world. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Very nice.
Peace and love. Good
Thanks
night.
for sharing. Peace and love. Thanks for sharing.
Nice
Everyone.
that was great video.
Thanks for sharing. Nice to be here.
Okay, bye.
Ditto.
Bye, everyone.
Bye
Take
bye,
care.
everybody.
Take care.
Goodness.